Hello again. Once again, I'm Cynthia, and I've started this video blog to try to help educate people to the realistic parts of surrogacy. So I wouldn't say I'm not a sugarcoater, because I do like to say things in a nice way, but I am going to be real and be honest and tell people how things are from my perspective, because otherwise we're not truly helping people. So for this video, I'm just going to go over let's do the matching part of the process. So let's talk about picking your agency and picking your intended parents. So once again, your intended parents are parents who are intending to be parents. They're not yet parents, but they really, really want to be. So either they have fertility problems themselves, or they're a same-sex couple, or they're single parents even. I've worked with somebody who was a single mother. So no matter their issues, they're reaching out to an agency trying to find a surrogate. So the first thing a surrogate needs to do is find her agency. So just because you're wanting to be a surrogate and just because you're going to be paid for it does not mean that you should settle. So you definitely need to find the agency that works for you, somebody whose wants are in line with yours. And if there's something that you don't like about them, there's something it's a red flag. So there's plenty of agencies out there. There's more parents looking for surrogates than there are surrogates. So not meaning that you should go and be a diva about everything, but definitely wait and make sure things are right, because if things start out wrong, they're always going to be wrong. So you just want to make sure that you go and look at their site, look at their pages, see how things are. Normally they also have a list of general compensations, which I think they call fees on most of their sites. So this is going to be what you get paid for things. This is going to be how much your base fee is going to be. So your base compensation is what you will get for the process of a full-term delivery. This doesn't include any of the other payments. It does not include health insurance. It doesn't include any of that. So to honestly throw out numbers in there, because I'm sure a lot of people do want to know about numbers. From my experiences in Southern California and in some places in Oregon, a surrogate should be totally okay expecting around $30,000 for her first journey. So what this means is that that $30,000 is your base compensation, and that will break down into 10 months. So once you are confirmed pregnant by fetal heartbeat, not just a pregnancy test, but fetal heartbeat, if you are getting $30,000 for your base compensation divided by 10 months, that means as soon as you're confirmed pregnant by fetal heartbeat, you will start getting your checks for $3,000 a month for those 10 months. So this is beneficial in a few ways. So say you miscarry, you get to keep what you made up until the time that you miscarry. That's a win-win for you and the parents, because if you were paid everything up front and you miscarried, then the intended parents would be screwed, and that's not okay. But also too, if you weren't allowed to get anything of your base compensation until you give birth, then what if you miscarry? It means you didn't get anything for everything that you've went through. So that's why the way most of the companies work out the base compensation being monthly is really fair on both sides. Like I said, if you miscarry up until a certain point, you'll get what you made into that point. Also, everybody's contract will have a designated time to where if you make it so far, you still will be entitled to your total compensation, even if something unfortunately happens to the baby, even if you have a late-term miscarriage or the baby is born and is stillborn, and heaven forbid. I'm not putting that energy out there, but sometimes it happens. And some of the times when you have a baby, it could possibly have some complications and pass away after it's born. So a lot of contracts will have a designated time. Just say some of my contracts have said 36 weeks. So as long as I made it to 36 weeks, then I'd be entitled to my full compensation. I've had friends that their contracts had said 32 weeks. So like I said before in one of my own other videos, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's process is different. You have different agencies, different intended parents, different lawyers, different contracts, all of that. And Nugget, come here. Come here, what are you doing? My dog's trying to bark at the other dogs in the area. That's all what they do to each other. Anyway, So everybody's process is going to be different. Just ladies, if you're being a surrogate, make sure you know your contract backwards and forwards. I've experienced surrogates before who are asking questions in a chat room that totally should be in their contract, and you should be reading your contract because you want to know what your rights are, and you want to know that you want to make sure you're not breaking any rules, that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So picking your agency in that way is very important. We were also talking about fees. So that base compensation does not include your health insurance. So it is the intended parent's responsibility to provide you with health insurance. This is a common thing. Everybody knows. All right, sorry about that odd little gap. I had to totally stop the video because neighbor's dog and my dogs were yelling at each other. But at least my little baby Millie got to come over here and come a little closer to me. That's one of my cats. Her name is Mildred Hubble. Yes, from The Worst Witch, one of the best movies ever. So we were talking about fees. So there's your base compensation, and we got to talking about the medical insurance. So parents know, or they should know, it's their responsibility to provide medical insurance for the surrogate. Most surrogates' insurances that a company they work for specifically does have guidelines that say that they will not cover insurance for surrogacy. And it totally makes sense because, yes, you're being pregnant no matter what, but why should they have to pay when you're becoming pregnant on purpose to have a baby for somebody else that's not even your baby? Some insurance does cover it, so you'll have to look very, very carefully. A prime example of an insurance carrier that does like to be difficult is Kaiser. So I've worked for Kaiser in the past, and their health insurance, what do they call it? Benefits handbook specifically says no surrogacy. If you call and ask for more information, they actually do cover surrogacy, but it's really, really tricky and it's really bad. So what they do is they say, okay, well, the surrogate needs to sign a completely separate contract saying that if the agency and the parents and the trust account do not end up paying the bills, the surrogate is liable. And this contract states, and I've seen it with my own eyes, that they have the right to take the surrogate's compensation. So that is not something that I as a surrogate would ever want to pay for. The way to get over that is actually having... Okay, sorry about that cat. More barking again. And I apologize. I don't know how to really edit videos yet, so you might have to just be with me on this barking, pausing, stopping again journey. So like I was starting to say, me as a surrogate, I don't want anything to possibly be able to take my hard-earned compensation from me, so that's not something that I would be willing to sign. The only way you wouldn't have to sign that is if the parents are going to put down a $30,000 amount into a trust account. So it was kind of a pain, but what they ended up being able to do is finding another health insurance provider that was okay with you having a different insurance but not being able to use it. So some parents, if they can't afford, in addition to everything else, providing somebody with health insurance, they might tell an agency, well, we need to make sure that we find somebody whose health insurance does cover surrogacy. So, but just do know as a surrogate, it's not your responsibility to provide health insurance for something as unique as this. But if your insurance does cover surrogacy, then that would be pretty beneficial to anybody that you're going to have a baby for. So in addition to the base compensation and providing health insurance, all the agencies and contracts that I've had, there is a compensation they pay you for starting injections, because you do have to inject yourself for 3 to 5 weeks before the embryo is transferred, and up to 12 weeks after. So it is a pretty long time. You also get a compensation for the actual transfer process itself, for them putting the embryo inside of you. Then you get compensations for maternity clothes. So your contract will state, or they'll even say on their website before you choose an agency, how much their compensation is for providing maternity clothes. And the maternity clothes allowance is normally given to you somewhere between 12 to 16 weeks, I believe it is. And some agencies will give you more compensation for maternity clothes if you end up being pregnant with twins. Let's see. A lot of agencies, well, every contract that I've had, do say that you are provided reimbursal for house cleaning expenses once you're past a certain amount of weeks in your gestation. And some of the contracts will state dates in gestation, and some will state dates from date of transfer. So make sure you're aware of that, because it doesn't seem like it should be, but it's a couple weeks difference. Because when you do it date from transfer, they're calculating when the embryo was put together and how old that's going to be, because the embryo is either 3, 5, or 7 days old when they put it inside the surrogate. So your contract will either state whether it's from date of gestation or date gestation, which is how far along you are in weeks, or date from embryo transfer. So pay attention to that. And then missed wages. Yes, you get missed wages. You will provide pay stubs in your contract process that will prove how much you make an hour. And if you get put on bed rest early, your missed wages starts as soon as that doctor takes you out of work. You are being a surrogate. You are doing this out of the kindness of your heart, and if you were to not get missed wages, then that means that you could possibly be losing a lot of money when you meant to do a good thing in the first place. So you should not be actually losing money from your job because of a pregnancy. So if you have a vaginal delivery, you're normally compensated 4 to 6 weeks of missed wages after. And if you have a cesarean, it's around 8 weeks. A lot of the contracts will also state that your health insurance has to be provided normally to about 3 months after you give birth. That way to make sure that there's no complications. I think that's about as far as it goes for the compensation part. Those are just the basic things to look out for. There's also a psychological allowance in case you need to see a counselor for any reason. That's been included in all of my contracts. I've never needed to use it. But what I did have put in my contract this time was an allotment for massage therapy, because massage therapy for me in my last one was really, really important because I was having massive back pain. But that wasn't something that was in a previous contract that I had. So this time my agency was awesome enough to put it in there for me. And so we worked on that together. So I'm really excited because it's not just for pampering. It is a mental relief, and it feels good mentally and physically. Sorry, I'm just still petting Millie over here. Talk about mental and stress relief. That's what kitties are for. Oh, Millie. Millie. Hey. She's too good. She's camera shy. So, massage is just good all around. It's good mentally. It's good physically. I couldn't have gotten through my back pain without it. So there are lots of things that you can work into your contract if you want to, in addition to the basic fees that I went over. If I missed any, I apologize. So we talked about picking your agency. Don't settle. Find one that looks good to you. Meet with them. Then when it comes to matching with intended parents, so what they do is that you create a profile. You include some pictures of yourself in there, your hobbies, how old you are, what you do for a living, and then the parents do the same thing. So the parents create a profile, and then they have access to look through the agency's database. This is from my experiences. So they go and they look in the database, they look at all the surrogates they are, and they most likely pick the healthiest one that's there. They're going to pick a fit, surrogate who obviously, takes care of herself and has respect for her body, because they know that she's going to have respect for their baby. A lot of, overweight, not as fit surrogates do get picked. And like I said before, I'm not saying this in a bad way. It's just the way it is. But the parents are most likely going to pick a fit surrogate over, a different option, because they know they can see what they're going to get. So the parents will go into the database and they'll say, hey, I like this surrogate. And so what they'll do is they'll send the surrogate that parent's profile. so you can look at everything that they've said. So you don't get to look through a database, but the parents do. And so, sorry, I'm getting little splinters here from being outside. Inside next time. No barking, no splinters. So the parents get to look through a database filled with surrogates, but the surrogates, for the intended parent's privacy, don't get to look through that until the parent shows interest. So you'll get their profile. It says how old they are, what they do for a living, if they have kids or not already. It'll also say things what their fertility issues are, so you become more aware. Once again, their fertility issues could be a woman can't hold a baby or carry a baby or has a problem with her uterus, a man's infertile, things like that, or it's a same-sex couple. So once you look at their profile, you'll look at that, and then if you both like each other, then it's a match. So then once it's considered a match, then you'll either meet with them in person, or if it's an international couple, you'll usually Skype. And if you like each other, then you start, the screening process, medical screening, to make sure you're healthy. They do blood work, everything like that. Of course, test you up the wazoo. Make sure you don't have any STDs. Make sure you're completely healthy to be able to do this. The healthier you are before the baby, the healthier you'll be when you're pregnant. And what else was I going to say? Got it. The other thing I was going to say is these profiles will also state, which will also be in a video that I'll talk about in a different video about realistic expectations before, during, and after pregnancy. So these profiles will also state on both parties, the surrogate and the intended parent, what your relationship wants are during the pregnancy and after. So this you need to be very honest about. If you're a surrogate who, might be, no offense, but super needy, and has to have the parents there for every single appointment, wants the parents there during the delivery, wants to be involved in the baby's life after, then that's something that you need to state, and you'll be matched with a parent with the same desires. I myself am pretty open to either way. Of course, I know it's the parent's right to be there at the appointments and to be at the hospital at the time of delivery. But also, too, I've worked with a lot of international couples, which obviously are overseas, so I'm very independent and I can do everything on my own. So I'm really open about that. But I have seen in blogs where surrogates get very, very upset because they were cut off after, or the parents won't let them visit the baby. But that's one thing you need to wrap your head around from the beginning. This is not your baby. This is somebody else's baby. You're doing your job of carrying it. It's their bun. It's your oven. You are a very, very loved oven. But if they decide that they don't want contact after, it is their right, and it's most likely in your contract. So, just know your wants and desires, and know that anything can change later. They can say that they want to stay in contact forever and ever, rainbows and butterflies, and then after, they decide that it's, kind of a hurtful reminder maybe that they couldn't carry a baby on their own, and they might decide to break contact, which is their right. So I'll go over that a little bit more in like a realistic expectations, but that will be generally in your profile. So somebody might state, after, that they don't feel the need to have contact after. Totally fine. Just make sure you're on the same page so there's no hurt feelings later. So after you're matched, then you'll go in for your medical screening, like I mentioned. Then you'll go into the contract phase. And then I'll talk about the contract phase in another video, just in case I've kept you on here too long. And maybe it's not something you need to learn about because you already know about it, but it'll be in another video. All right, thanks you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.